Welcome to AI Classroom. Today we are joined by an extra special guest, Mr. Joe Hastings. Mr. Joe Hastings is the educational technology coach here at CIS, and most recently, and very importantly, he heads the AI steering committee in the secondary section. To my left is Nicholas Gao. He's a year 11 student here at CIS. Nicholas and I have collaborated now, it seems like, for ages on AI topics. We've been involved in podcasts before, and I've had the good fortune to be his teacher and to see how he uses AI. In fact, you were the person who introduced me to AI seems a long time ago. So anyway, thank you for joining us. And to get things started, as we always do, we're going to talk a little bit about what's new in the world of AI. And for that, it seems like no topic is more hot than Sam Altman, the CEO, was he, of OpenAI, being fired and then reinstated in a Hollywood drama-like story that unfolded this past week. So if we could just begin with that. I don't know if you all have any thoughts on that, the implications of it, or anything else you're thinking.
Make a great Netflix show. Yeah. I don't think anyone could have seen that coming, especially around one of, if not the leading name in AI. Such what it came across as disorganization and controversy just out of a company that has slowly been changing the world for the last few years. So really interesting to see. I'm really interested to hear a student's perspective on it, because me viewing it through my adult glasses probably interpreted it really differently. Are students talking about this?
Not really, to be honest. I haven't really heard anything about it, but for me, I think that what's interesting is that a non-profit board is controlling a for-profit company, and that the protocols, because they are kind of a special scenario, which claims to create AI for the greater good, they have different protocols for their financial situation and the reporting to investors, and how it all works is quite classified in a sense, and I think that's somewhat interesting. It's also noteworthy that everybody on the previous board, who has more or less been replaced, did not have equity in OpenAI, and neither did Sam Altman. So that's also a further consideration for their decisions and their choices.
Yeah, I saw that one remaining board member is from the original board, who's also the CEO of Quora, who make Poe. So that's an interesting connection there.
I'm coming at this from a very naive place, but what exactly was the source of tension that kind of originally led to the firing? Does anyone know what that was all about?
I don't believe, it sounds like Nicholas has really been up to speed on this, maybe even more than me, that it's been disclosed officially yet. But what people are saying is it is to do, and something that's really, really relevant to us in a school, is around safety and how fast things are moving. And what are they releasing to the public without fully exploring the implications of releasing that, hugely powerful technology. But that's my understanding. But it's all been a bit hush hush and high drama and hard to say with certainty.
From what I've seen, Sam was not accurately reporting to the board and did not fully disclose everything, and they were not satisfied with his performance. So I think that's the reason they've provided, but obviously the details are all confidential and have not been released yet.
Am I correct in thinking that given the increasing power that GPT has over many aspects of our life, not least education, that whoever is at the helm of OpenAI in the role of a CEO actually has a very important role to play, not only for the company, but for society at large, we think?
Very much so, and I think I'd add to that conversation, the role of Microsoft in the whole debacle is really interesting as well. They're a 49% stakeholder of OpenAI, And if you've been following the news, when he was fired, the first thing that happened was Microsoft offered him a job in a sort of undisclosed position that was AI research, high-level AI research or something along those lines. And then all of a sudden, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and he's walking back through the front door as CEO again. So I've been joking that Microsoft have gone from a 49% stakeholder of the biggest AI company in the world to becoming a 51% stakeholder, and the decision-making abilities that gives Microsoft control over the future of OpenAI and ChatGPT and everything surrounding that is a really interesting one, because Sam Altman is one man, and Microsoft is this monolithic mega corporation. So that's an interesting angle when we could talk about responsibility, I suppose.
All right. If we could narrow it a little bit more into the education space, no doubt these implications that we're discussing have a role to play here as well. And are there any in the past, since we've last met, any new tools that students and teachers are using that you've maybe encountered, or Nicholas, that you're finding you or your classmates are talking about?
I don't think anything new in particular, but I've been using GPT a lot for math help recently because of the math summitings, which are quite challenging at times. So I've been using that to help correct me and also give me feedback. I don't think GPT is necessarily accurate in the sense that it provides the correct answer when you give it the question, but it is mostly accurate when you provide your working and the answer to the question, and it can kind of take that context and build on it and provide feedback on what you did correctly and what you did incorrectly. So I think that's pretty helpful for me as well.
And you're finding ChatGPT is the assistant that is most helpful to you with the other options available when it comes to math as well?
For math, I prefer GPT-4, but it's also not entirely accurate.
Mr. Hastings, how about any teachers coming to you asking about new sorts of tools?
Yeah, I would say mostly in line with what Nicholas is saying. I think those big chatbots, the Pose. We had some secondary students up with us the other day talking about something un-AI related, and I just finished the conversation with, before you go, top AI tool, go. And we received 4 Pose in a row. So it's pretty clear what we're hearing, and I think with teachers it's much the same. There are some other tools that are a bit more teacher focused, where they pointed the AI at it and trained it to do tasks. I know Magic School was talked about a lot at the recent ADE conference that was hosted here at CIS. And on a personal level, at that same conference, I attended a really great talk with someone who's quite involved with film and digital design. And they introduced Luma AI, which is a tool that can it's a text to 3D model generator, essentially. So where DALL-E gives you a picture, or ChatGPT gives you a text response, Luma allows you to say, I want a ninja holding a sword, and it will spit out 4 different versions of that, which you can then take the models and use them in your design creation. So that was a really cool thing I didn't know was so far along as it is. So a little tool I've been fiddling with, and it's interesting to consider the implications that might have on, product design, 3D design, film, entertainment, if it gets out of its sort of infancy stage that it's at the moment.
How far are we from being able to say, give me a Mr. Wilson, so to speak, where I just, give it, information I've curated, some of my writing samples, some of my speaking samples, a few images so it knows what to go with. How long would it be before we can move beyond the bot stage and I can have my own avatar that is, I don't know in hologram form, but at least some sort of a visual representation of me?
Sure. I think the tools to do that exist now. There are great ways to take your image and animate it, maybe not quite hologram level. And I'm discussing a very early stage of it, that being 3D model, which is the next step forward in that. There's definitely going to be a time in the near future where you can feed it pictures of you. There's software being released by Adobe at the moment, which allows you to take multiple photos of things and it will build 3D models from that. And really what's stopping it from being easy right now is all these tools are being developed sort of in isolation. So the one that does natural voice generation won't talk to the one that does the 3D models. And the one that does the 3D models won't talk to the chatbot that's processed all of your data. So
Until Microsoft buys them
until Microsoft buys them all and brings them all together into one super platform. So I think the technology is close already, but there's no easy way for a user to do that without having to interact with multiple platforms and spend a lot of time bringing them all together.
Something that came up on a related note, this is going a little bit off script, but I think it's important and definitely relevant. I was just having a conversation 30 minutes ago with one of our English teachers who knows their subject very, very well. And they do use ChatGPT to kind of brainstorm and generate some ideas. And they mentioned how surprised they are at how often ChatGPT is wrong about certain details, related to literature. And on one hand, it was a little bit funny. We compared ChatGPT to kind of an overeager, first-year university student that just wants to please their supervisor and just spits out anything they can, even if it's wrong, because they just don't want to seem like they're incompetent. And that's a little like ChatGPT is. But then the conversation turned a little more serious when we thought about students who don't have that background knowledge that this teacher has. They don't know, because oftentimes it's kind of subtle things like a name is wrong, or quotes, or there's misquotes. And for those students, that's what for them is being presented, and they will take that in as kind of definitive knowledge. And that's maybe a little bit of a bigger concern. I don't know if either of you have experienced anything like that in your own investigations.
Yeah, I definitely have. GPT-4 but it consistently screws up my math problems and spits out a completely random answer which makes no logical sense, which is quite frustrating. But at the same time, I understand that it's not always going to be accurate. So for math, for me, I think there are no really real solutions for that. But for things like English or for fact-based answers, so for INSO, or if I need information on a particular source, if I get an answer from GPT-4, what I usually do is I copy it and then I paste it in Bing, and then I ask it to fact check it, because Bing has access to the internet. And oftentimes I'm too lazy to search the internet myself if it means I have to search an entire essay and prove every single fact is correct. So I just paste it in and then ask to fact check it. And then it usually tells me if something is wrong or correct. And that's kind of a second layer of security that I have to ensure that the sources that I get are accurate. But obviously, if it's something that I really need to ensure is accurate, like if it's an academic paper, I would definitely do it myself as well. I just use Bing for less significant tasks.
Can I ask, is that a protocol you've kind of developed yourself for yourself, or was that discussed with you, or something you learned from a teacher or a family member or a friend, or?
Not particularly. I've just known that Bing can access the internet, so I've just used them.
So you've built a sort of, a protocol of double checking, fact checking, and critically thinking about your work, because you know the limitations of AI.
Yeah.
I think that's really special. I don't know if every student would think to do that, and I suppose that's at the heart of Mr. Wilson's question here, is Nicholas has, but do we teach our students to do that as standard practice? Because I do think there are students out there who would type in, see the answer, take it at face value, and that's the answer they would accept. And that's a really, really powerful question. It's amazing to see, students already taking it into their own hands and developing systems and fact-checking processes for themselves. That's the type of use we love to see.
On that note, what role do parents play in all this? It seems like some of these things we're talking about teachers and students, but hovering very close in the background are parents, and surely they have a role to play in all of this. Nicholas, from your experiences, are these conversations that your classmates are generally having with parents? And if so, who's leading those conversations? Is it, more of your friends telling your parents what's going on, or are they getting guidance from their parents?
In my experience, it's mainly the students teaching the parents because students are more knowledgeable on more current aspects of the internet and social media and things like that. So that's what I think is kind of the direction that's going. But in my particular instance, I don't really talk to my parents about current affairs or artificial intelligence much at all. So I think that's something that's quite lacking. And there isn't kind of a space for us to do that. So I think, for instance, something that could be suitable is next year during the SLCs where it's just students and parents talking for about an hour or two. We could also have like a short section where students can talk about their own learning achievements, their time management skills, but also a small section where they can talk about their AI tools and how that has been used in their life to help their studies.
That's really good, a really good suggestion, and I'll take that on. I'm trying to do that, something like that currently in the PBL program here. Anything from your end on that? Are you hearing
No,
anything?
I'm really enjoying some of these things Nicholas is bringing up. As an AI steering committee here at the school, we're asking ourselves the same question. If we don't want to put practices and principles into people's mouths for them. These need to come from the students and from the parents and from the faculty and from the leadership as well. And creating a forum to have those discussions is really important because even our AI power users are not having those discussions at home, then it's a discussion that needs to be had everywhere at the moment, and certainly if we want to have a stance as a school of what we believe, we need to hear those voices. So I really couldn't agree more with the importance of doing that.
Yeah, and speaking of a school having a stance, we just had our first whole school AI steering committee meeting this past week, which Mr. Hastings co-chaired. And one of the kind of outcomes of that meeting was that I think we all realized the important role that students need to play, but there remains a little bit of uncertainty around what that role would look like. So to wrap things up today, it would be great if we could address that more directly and talk about what role should students play in developing the principles and practices around AI use at CIS going forward. Nicholas, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I know Ms. Stolman creates a lot of committees. She has one for Flexi and uniform design and lots of others, which I find pretty amusing. But I'm not sure if there's an AI steering committee where students are involved. And that's something that I definitely recommend, because although teachers come up with excellent ideas, ultimately the ground or the foundation of all those ideas go to the students. And I think having that input, even if it's just a small committee of a select few students, would be definitely very helpful for guiding teachers and administrators in the method of how to implement AI successfully, because sometimes students are hesitant and other times students may be too eager to use AI. So there's definitely a balance to strike, and having the student input would definitely serve as a grounding factor in that.
Absolutely, and it is to a degree our fault as the educators that we've been slow to pick these things up and to begin these conversations, and it's something we're really trying to address right now. It's all moved so fast that it's hard to even begin to get a comprehension of how we start to have those discussions so that we can move towards a greater goal. But getting students in rooms with teachers is surely one of those things. So couldn't agree more.
On top of that, I also think perhaps students could also teach other students. So for instance, I recently did a talk with a URA advisory on using AI in Notion and how to improve their time management in that sense. But I feel like if older year students or senior students could give AI talks on younger year students, perhaps even just one assembly for the entirety of year 7 would definitely be very helpful for developing that foundation as they get closer to the older years.
Yeah, that's great. So I think we're getting a much more clear picture of how this could look. So you're envisioning both a space where students are working with, and definitely in some instances, and not only sharing ideas, but teaching the teachers and other spaces where students are teaching each other and there being time allocated towards these purposes. How else could we imagine this looking across the school?
It's a great question that we're trying to answer. You know,
it's a hard
and
one.
some of the things we brought up there are things we were talking about just this Tuesday in our meeting. You know, the other thing we really want to get more involved is the parents, really. That's where we're finding the hardest conversations to start. Not hard, but we haven't asked the right questions yet. And you know, that's where we want to look. Obviously, leadership have a role to play in it as well. But right now, we've used this term principles and practices, or practices and principles, a few times, because we're not looking here to create policy. Policy is slow. It's rigid, and it doesn't really actually normally address the root of the problem. It's about creating ideas and practices we think are best, and the students know better than most of the teachers as well. It's not you know, it's the exact same situation. So we've got a lot to learn from them, and that's really our main focus. And we'll see what comes along next.
That's right. And with that question, kind of all important question lingering, we're going to wrap it up for the day. So thank you both for joining. That was a really insightful conversation. And thank you all for watching AI Classroom. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.